morning. Hope you guys are having a great week/weekend. I had a good weekend overall. And I got to see the Wakanda movie. I would definitely recommend seeing it. I don't want to spoil it. So I won't really talk about my thoughts on it too much, but I would say definitely go see it, experience it. So I wanted to do 2 episodes today because I just felt like I did do 2 episodes today. I feel like I want to do more episodes when I have the chance to do so. And so that's what I'm going to do. And no, I'm not trying to do this is not my, Barry White, sultry voice. I lost my voice. So I'm Mrs. Raspy today, so bear with me. But yeah, hopefully this is the first episode, so I'm going to do, and then I'm going to do another one too. So hopefully they're helpful to you guys, and we're going to go from there. So the first one is, again, this is from my favorite book now, 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think by Brianna Weiss. I highly recommend purchasing the book if you haven't already. You know, I've pretty much probably read almost every chapter to you guys, so maybe you don't have to buy it, but just for your own self. So this chapter that I want to talk about is called 10 Key Things We Misunderstand About Emotion. So number 1, the long-term effects of emotional abuse can be as bad, if not worse, than physical abuse. Emotional abuse is often not taken as seriously because it cannot always be seen. But the severity of the long-term effects of any type of abuse aren't all that different. Emotional abuse is similar to physical abuse in that it systematically wears away at a person's self-confidence, worth, and concept. Emotional abuse can manifest in a variety of ways, including but not limited to controlling, threatening, degrading, belittling, criticizing, shouting, etc. Just basically, emotional abuse is something that takes a long time to repair. So just be cautious of that. Number 2, emotions outlast the memories that created them. We take past emotions and project them onto situations that are in our current lives. This is to say, unless we heal what happened in the past, we're always going to be controlled by it. Furthermore, our irrational fears and most severe day-to-day anxieties can be traced back to a cause which needs to be addressed to effectively stop the effect. Yeah, I definitely agree in that. It's like past childhood trauma or like your first heartbreak or something like that. The emotions that those memories and situations cause can be projected in, it can be projected because your brain, when we have experiences, it creates memories and the emotions that come with those memories. So like certain situations, like if you were raised in an abusive household and your brain learned to like escape or something like that, then or came up with certain coping mechanisms to escape your situation, then as you get older, if you got to a similar situation, it doesn't have to be abuse, but if someone, if you experience a lot of like screaming, yelling in your household or something like that, then as an adult, if someone does scream at you or something like that, you might automatically go back to those same emotions because that's like your brain is triggered to do the same thing as you were as a child. I hope that makes sense. I don't know if I explained that right, but basically certain experiences that you have create emotions that stay in you if you don't heal them or you don't learn how to respond differently. So even if it's not the same exact situation, you might respond the same way because your body is wired to respond that way based on the first time you experienced that. Number 3, creative people are depressed for a reason. The expression and experience of negative emotions are correlated with activation in the right frontal cortex, as well as in other structures such as the amygdala. Or in other words, the same areas that are activated when consistently being creative and putting abstract meaning to the concrete reality of whatever your current experience is. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard that, like, a lot of artists are actually, they create some of their best work out of pain and depression a lot, and especially back in the day. Like, they say a lot of those artists, like Van Gogh, Da Vinci, or whatever, they were all like messed up, really. And a lot of their work actually has dark meaning behind it. So, and I mean, that's just something that came to my head, but I really try to focus on the black and brown, but I can't really think of too many, because I feel like lately, a lot of the times when I see art from black and brown artists, I love it because it's usually positive. So it's not always coming from a negative situation, negative mindset, but sometimes it can be as far as the emotion. So number 4, fear doesn't mean a desire to escape. It means you're interested. The emotion most associated with fear is interest, believe it or not. It's even been said that fear has 2 invisible faces, one that wants to flee and the other that wants to investigate. This is to say, nothing is generally scary to us unless some part of us also wants to understand it, knows we are part of it, and feels as though it will become part of our experience. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to read that again. So it says, number 4, fear doesn't mean a desire to escape. It means you're interested. The emotion most associated with fear is interest, believe it or not. It's even been said that fear has 2 invisible faces, one that wants to flee and the other that wants to investigate. This is to say, nothing is generally scary to us unless some part of us also wants to understand it, knows we are part of it, and feels as though it will become part of our experience. That's very interesting because it makes sense though. Like, if you're afraid to fall in love or something like that, it's because part of you recognize that you are feeling that, and you might be afraid of what that means and how that will impact your life and your experience of it, based on maybe past experience of being in love or something, or just not. The fear of the unknown. But you also are intrigued by it because you're able to recognize that you're recognizing what's going on and like why you're afraid of it. So number 5, feelings other than happiness are not marks of failure. Health is having a spectrum of emotion. Negative emotions are good for you. In fact, maintaining a consistent experience of only happiness or any emotion really would be a sign of mental illness. It's simply not how our minds and bodies are structured. In other words, you're not supposed to be happy all the time. Listen to what your body is telling you. Negative emotions are a signal that something isn't right. The emotion doesn't have to be fixed. The thing that it's signaling your attention to does. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna agree with that. Like, somebody who's always happy 24/7, something's off. Something's off. Like, if you, and that's just me. Like, if you are somebody who's, you are happy all the time, every single day, every minute, every hour, nothing bothers you, you're probably you're fronting. Like, that means to me, again, this is all my personal opinion, but to me, it's like, that means to me, like, you don't deal with stuff. You play, you pretend like you're in fantasy land. And hey, you know what? Like, maybe that feels great or whatever, but when that wall breaks, good luck, because all the emotions that you're dodging, that's gonna hurt. That's gotta be a flood of emotions. We're not wired to be happy all the time. We're just not. You can be sad, you can be scared, you can be angry, be confused, like allow yourself to feel the emotions that are quote unquote negative, because I don't think they're really actually negative. It's just what the world wants us to believe is negative. I don't feel that God would ever put something in us as humans that we aren't meant to experience. There's a reason why we have sadness and happiness and fear and anger and confusion and stuff. It's a compass. I feel like it's an internal compass of your emotions can guide you as well. Like it says, the emotion doesn't have to be fixed. The thing that it's signaling your attention to does. So emotions can be used as a compass, which is why it's important to be in tune with yourself and be in tune with your emotions, because your emotions are a way for your body, your higher self, your soul to kind of direct you, like, hey, this is not right, or this is right. You know what I mean? Like, that's why it's important to not be like this, like I said, being only happy, because you're ignoring your inner compass. Emotions can predict the future. Number 6, emotions can predict the future. Or in other words, gut feelings are real, like I was just saying. A study at Columbia University, which is being called the emotional oral effect. A study at Columbia University, which is being called the emotional oracle effect, essentially proved that people who trust their emotions can predict future outcomes because they tap into it regularly. They have a window into their subconscious mind, which is more or less just an unconscious well of information. It's very interesting because, what was I watching? I was watching something where they were talking about mothers and how women, when they become mothers, their intuition, first of all, women's intuition, you always hear that, and how we all as women have an intuition, which you should definitely utilize and tap into, because it can help us navigate throughout life and know when certain things are just going to happen. And it was saying how, like, when you become a mother, it becomes even more heightened, and they can predict future outcomes for their children. Not always, but a lot of the times. And that helps them prevent harm upon their kids, or their babies. You know what I mean? Because when you have a child, you're fully responsible for that child. And because this child has been growing inside of you, you become very, very in tune with them and their emotions too. So you're able to, that's how, like, you hear, like, moms, they hear the cries of their babies and they know the difference between a hunger cry, a pain cry, a scared cry, or something like that. And it's like, people who are not the mother of the child or don't have that intuition can be like, how did you know the baby was hungry? It's like, no, you could just tell. And it's something that probably can't be explained. I'm not a mom, so I can't really speak on experience, but just based on what I've read and what I've seen on myself, you're able to predict certain things about your child, and I think that's very important. That's really pretty cool. But like it says, emotions can predict the future. So your gut feeling, like, follow your gut, like they always say. Number 7, we can relive social pain more than we can physical pain, which is another reason some researchers believe it is, in a sense, more damaging. When there aren't any psychological factors that play into physical pain, or rather, there's no innate instinct that we need to process or readjust ourselves to survive, we let the memory go. However, our brains will prioritize rejection or other social emotion or humiliation because we need to remain in the tribe to survive. Interesting. Yeah, I definitely understand that, because rejection is something, it can be a painful experience, and that could be rejection in relationships, rejection within your family, rejection within society, friend groups, whatever. But I feel like we've all experienced rejection, and there's different ways to handle it. You can process it internally, which can cause you to suffer emotionally, because you will start to potentially blame yourself or critique yourself or try to change yourself but also it makes you fearful of the next time of having a similar experience. So say, I'm just going to use dating, for example. You take a risk, you tell somebody how you feel, they don't reciprocate or they still reject you. You don't get the result that you want. Then the next time when you go back into dating, you could potentially have a fear of getting the same result. So you move in fear rather than being yourself. So that's something that would require healing, because you don't want to obviously do that. And also, like it says, you remain in this tribe trying to survive. So you probably are navigating in a negative way because you're trying to avoid that feeling, or you're trying to you're trying to avoid the feeling. So, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, what is this? Number 8, stress may just be the most dangerous emotion, especially when it's consistent, and yet it goes unaddressed more often than other feelings. Relaxing isn't something you should do to pamper yourself. It's absolutely essential. Stress debilitates every part of you, and it's in one way or another interconnected with the top causes of death around the world: accidents, cancer, heart disease, suicide, etc. Yeah, stress is real. Like, stress can cause you really great pain to your body, to your mind, to your spirit. And a lot of times we don't even realize it, because a lot of times we're all stressed. Life is hard and we get curveballs every way you go. So the way you handle stress is very important. And that's very important to pay attention to when you're dating, because you got to understand how people deal with stress, because stress is unavoidable, right? Whether you think you're avoiding it or not, because you might think you're avoiding stress, but you're not. In the sense of, all right, say in your head you think, oh, I'm not stressing that, but your body is stressing that, and it's still, just because your mind isn't, your body can be. And that's how you can get sick and stuff like that. So stress is not really something that you can avoid. It's more so something like an emotion that you have to allow yourself to go through. And when you don't, it builds up and could cause problems. Like it says, accidents comes out as cancer or disease or something like that, because your body's not meant to maintain that and hold that. You're meant to release it, which is why they always say work out, meditate, read, do things that calm you and can release the stress. There's other activities too, but I don't want to go on a list. Number 9, social media is actually making us more emotionally disconnected. Consistently consuming sound bites of people's lives leads us to piece together a particular idea of reality, one that is far from the truth. We develop such anxiety surrounding social media and whether or not we're really living up to the standards expected of us, that we begin to prioritize screen time over real-life FaceTime. As beings who require human intimacy, romantic and not, to survive, it's becoming a more and more detrimental force in our culture. Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this before. Social media definitely has its negatives and its positive. It plays a huge role in the way that people tend to interact with one another nowadays. That intimacy and the emotions are just sometimes not there. People don't know how to respond to things, quote unquote, properly. A lot of it is emotionally disconnected. Is this culture of being, savage and not being emotionally available, using people, hurting people. But also there's a huge talk of just mental illness, and people sometimes give the wrong information regarding mental illness. So you have to be very careful with social media. Number 10, you cannot selectively numb emotion. When we numb hard feelings, we numb joy, we numb gratitude, we numb happiness. Brene Brown argues that you cannot numb yourself to one experience without numbing yourself to everything else. You cannot disregard sadness without also making yourself immune to happiness. This is to say it's healthier to experience everything, the good and the bad. Like I was saying, when you try to avoid things, it doesn't mean you're not actually avoiding it. So, and you're doing yourself more harm than good, because you are avoiding what you think you're avoiding. You're also limiting yourself to experience. So like it's saying, when you try to I don't want to be angry, I don't want to be hurt, so I'm gonna avoid these things. With dating or something like that, you're also preventing yourself from experiencing happiness, which is in love, which is, I would assume, what you're looking for when going into the experiences. So you can't have, what I'm taking from that is, you can't have the love you want without avoiding the potential pain of trying to get there. It's a good quote. You can't, I don't remember what I said, but I said you can't obtain the love you want by avoiding the pain to get there. So it's better to feel everything than trying to duck and dodge and miss feeling feeling everything. I hope that made sense. But yeah, basically you can't avoid your feelings, whether they're desirable or not. Allow yourself to feel them to get to where you want to be, and you will get there. So, again, this was, this was 10 key things we misunderstand about emotion. So, hopefully that was helpful and allows you to think about how you handle your emotions on your everyday life, and whether you give yourself the grace to experience different emotions. Excuse me. I thought of this because I think I mentioned before, like recently I lost a family member, and it was his funeral was on Friday, and I realized that, like, leading up to the funeral, I was feeling sad because obviously it's a passing of a family member, and it's not a good feeling to lose someone. And I had actually seen him maybe a month or so before. We ran into each other at a cookout, and I can be peaceful in knowing that, like, I got to see him and say my goodbyes, I suppose, in that way. And we got to separate on a good note. But I came up with this episode about emotions because it's something that my brother and we had talked about, like how, for me, leading up to it, I hadn't cried. Like, I hadn't cried at all. Like, I was sad, and I was more so, like, in a state of shock. And when we were at the funeral and stuff, I did cry I got teary-eyed when we went to the wake. And then I was crying so many, first of all, he was super, super, super loved because so many people were there. Like, I've been to my handful of funerals, and I've seen, people come through, but man, it was like people of all walks of life, people that I knew from the city that, I ran into people that I've worked with, people that my mom's family friend, like so many people that I didn't know that he knew. And so that just made me feel really good because, he was super loved, and he was a really, really great guy. So, I say that to say, like, the emotion part, I wasn't planning, like, I don't know. I feel like I wasn't planning on crying. Maybe like shedding, like being teary-eyed a little bit, but I didn't expect myself to cry like that. And I wasn't like inconsolable, but there were times when I just was crying a little bit. And anyway, I talked about it because my brother, we went to eat after, and he was talking about how, like, I really don't cry. Like, he's never really seen me cry as much as, like, he cries and stuff like that, and how people deal with emotions differently. And it really made me think, because I'm like, dang, like I feel like I am a sensitive person and emotionally in tune, but at the same time, I definitely, I feel like I've talked about this a lot on this episode, how I don't really cry and I don't necessarily get sad a lot, and hopefully I don't have a mental illness with that. But I guess it's something to be, aware of and try to understand more. And I think that part of it is just being somewhat in survival mode. And survival mode doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm making sure I have food on the table. Survival mode can be also emotional survival mode. Like, I have to do whatever I can to avoid getting hurt. And so that could mean not crying or something like that. So, in suppressing emotions. So it just made me aware, and I like how, this book always tends to help understand certain things. So I think I liked how it talked about what emotions are, and how we come about even getting them, like how certain memories in life create certain emotions, and how you can be triggered by certain situations within your life. And I think that that's definitely happened to me, where now as an adult, I've done a better job, especially with the help of therapy, to tap into those emotions, or when they come about and when they're triggered, to allow myself to feel them versus trying to run away from them. And so I like how one of my favorite ones of this was, the fear doesn't mean a desire to escape, it means you're interested. And a lot of times for me, when it comes to relationships and dating and stuff like that, I did always have fear, not necessarily of dating, but of what that brings about, and like the emotions that come with that, and what that means to actually be vulnerable with someone and letting them in, and letting yourself feel certain emotions, and how you're not really, I just don't believe that when you're in love, you're in control. I just don't think that you really are. I think love really does overpower, or in a sense, like overpower your heart, and you act out of love, and you are acting how you're supposed to, but it could be a crazy emotion. So, and it can make you do crazy things. And so, that fear can kind of overpower you, and make you avoid it. And that with that comes avoiding emotions, and you pretty much essentially rob yourself of an experience, right? So that's something that I'm working on currently, and just moving into the future, of not robbing myself of experiences by trying to be afraid of feeling things. And not just within love, but within life, like not trying to always plan everything out. I think something that I learned from the passing of my cousin, and learning about him and who he was, is that he, first of all, very much moved with love, and was a very, very, just helpful person. And he wanted to see anybody around him win, but also he definitely lived his life to the fullest. And learning that he traveled so much, and I thought that was really cool, and I didn't really know that. And that would just make me think, damn, you should travel too. I should travel more too, even if it's by myself. Because I do want to see the world. There's a world outside of Boston. There's a world outside of the United States, and there's so many places that I get to see, on TikTok and all that stuff. And I'm just I want to go there one day. But I'm you know what? I need to really, to get on that. So, I hope I didn't go on a tangent, but I guess my point is to allow yourself to feel certain emotions, and allow emotions to be your compass, and let it guide you to where essentially your soul is trying to take you, which is where you need to be. So hopefully this was helpful. I do have another episode I'm going to do right now after this. And as always, this is the Black Hippie Lounge. I'm your host, Chanel. As always, meditate, manifest, invest in you. Have a great rest of your weekend, and stay tuned for the next episode. Meditate, manifest, invest in you. Join me on my spiritual journey as I elevate myself and like-minded listeners to a higher level, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for listening. This is Black Hippie Lounge, and I am your host, Chanel.